Hi everyone, Ryer here with another video for you. Today I want to discuss how my main character, Chaos, has changed in Under Night In-Birth 2 Celes. Before we get started though, please consider subscribing to the channel and dropping a like on the video. It really helps me out a lot and it only takes a second to do. Also, if you've already played Under Night before the beta and the new game, please tell me how you feel about how your main has changed. I'd love to hear about it. I'm going to be talking a little more freeform during this video, so expect to kind of hear a little bit more rambly stuff, a little less directed stuff, but I really just want to get all my thoughts out there on the character. So yeah, definitely let me know what you think of this. Maybe this is better or worse. Hard to say, but yeah, let me know what you think. If you like this, this is just going to be about 15-20 minutes of me talking about Chaos and what I think he can and can't do in the new version. Enjoy. All right, let's get this out of the way first. I feel that in Under Night In-Birth 2 Celes, that Chaos was nerfed. Yes, I do think he was nerfed, absolutely. The environment is not as friendly to him. Some of his tools have changed in a way that make it a little harder. And yes, he is worse than he was in the previous game. However, that doesn't mean he's bad. I'm not saying Chaos is bad now. He still has all the tools he needs to compete, but there were some things changed about him that make it a little harder to be a Chaos main coming into the new game, especially if you were used to what he could do in the previous game. I'll discuss some of these changes now, and then get into a little of kind of what I think Chaos players need to keep in mind based on my experience in the beta. I played about 300 games during the beta weekend as Chaos and got a good idea of what works and what doesn't. I'll discuss both of his new moves as well as his input changes and what I think the new mechanics, meaning Celestial and Creeping Edge, mean for him in this game. Also, a bit of a disclaimer, I should say, this is from a beta version of the game that is yet unreleased. Things may change before the actual game drops in January. Please change. I hope some of this changes before this drops in January. Number 1, A normals now destroy Azhi. This is what everyone's saying is the big one. This is what everyone's talking about, right? Previously, you needed to use a B normal or higher to attack Azhi after he did a move to delete him and then start your offense. And B moves are going to be slower than A moves. Now, A normals do this. This means more interactions will play out unfavorably for Chaos, and opponents can take less of a risk when trying to poke him out of his pressure from full screen or even from close up. Yes, this is a huge change. But in my opinion, there are a lot of situations that this doesn't change. Any situation that you were punishing your opponent for mashing in before still gets to punish. You still get a frame trap on 623A after 236A. You just got to be a little tighter with it, and sometimes it might not shake out your way. This was definitely the most obvious change in the beta, but not the most impactful, I think. This also makes situations a little harder in pressure or when trying to reversal with Azhi. A previous tactic you could use was 236A and CS. You could use 236A and CS to try to get out of a situation, and if the opponent was pressuring with A normals or something, Azhi would jump through it and let you start your offense. Now, literally anything the opponent's pressuring with is going to kill Azhi if you try to, use him as a reversal option, even with CS backup. Number 2, projectiles now delete Azhi during 236A and 236B. This one is a little more subtle of a change, but this is really what creates the most change in his playstyle, in my opinion, from before. This makes characters like Carmine, Hyde, Batista, etc. way better into Chaos than they previously were before. Previously, versus a projectile character, I could just 236A and then see what they were doing and move on from there. If they were doing a projectile, Azhi may even punish them and I could get a full thing started. Now, no matter what, Azhi cannot go through projectiles. I think this, combined with the first change, is really making life hard for Chaos players right now. You can't use Azhi as liberally as you wanted to before, and you have situations that aren't going to shake out the way that you expect them to if you're coming in having played Chaos previously. Chaos now has to focus hard on winning cycle and using his normals way more than he did before. And yeah, you get a lot more meter in this version of the game, so you can CS IW a lot more. But like with 236A CS being nerfed because of this reason and the reason before, as well as like just not being able to throw out Azhi like a projectile to contest other projectiles, they go straight through him now. He doesn't even like clash with the projectile. It just the projectile deletes him and keeps going. So against projectile characters, you have very little play from full screen. You actually kind of have to try to jump in on them or time your approach more conservatively to make sure that you're using Azhi right in these matchups. Do I think this makes him unplayable? No, but I think this definitely means you have to think differently. These two reasons, you have to think differently about how to use Chaos in different matchups coming into this version. And I think ultimately his offensive strength wasn't changed. In fact, it's a little better, which I'll talk about later. But a lot of his defensive options involving Azhi now lose to things that they previously beat. And that's really, really hard to wrap your head around, especially early on. Number 3, 623A or B, the Tail Whip move, no longer has invulnerability when Chaos is in Vorpal. This is small, but it's definitely worth mentioning. I don't think this has any outright material implications on what you can and can't do with Chaos. You can still do everything you did with Tail Whip before. You can frame trap with it. You can, use it to create plus frames. You can still use it in every way that you used it before. However, it won't be invulnerable. So like previously with Vorpal, Azhi would go through anything an opponent did if you tail whipped with Vorpal, and now he just doesn't. So you won't get any happy accident frame traps now. There were some funny moments before where somebody would hit a B normal and Azhi would still be invincible because he was tail whipping, so they would still get hit. You don't get any of that anymore, and you also don't have any kind of like CS tail whip if you see they're doing something kind of slow and active to counter it. It's small, but it's there. Number 4, Snake Around, that's the roll move, is now inputted with forward A plus B or 6AB while dashing, rather than being his force function. You can also quickly input this by holding 6 and pressing AB twice. The first one will give you the dash, the second one will give you the roll. Sounds small because the move is still there, but this actually has a bit more impact than you might think. It means that Snake Around cannot be used in a situation where you would cancel it off of a normal or Azhi move. So before, you could do something like 6-6C into B plus C, 6-6C into force function, to roll onto the other side of the opponent after a knockdown with B plus C. That's now not possible, because you can only use the Snake Around when you are able to dash. Thankfully, this doesn't remove the cross-up setup with Azhi, as you can still do that, albeit a little more slowly. And it also doesn't change any of the 6C into Snake Around confirms. They added an input. You could press 6C and then just press C again. It'll be an alternative command for Snake Around, and it only works if the 6C hits. So that's still there, no worries about that. This does create a bit of muscle memory discomfort, and it removes a couple setups, notably this one from Clear, where you could cancel 2-3-6 into B plus C and get a sandwich mid-block string. But it doesn't remove the core element of Chaos's mix-up or anything like that, so it's a lot more of just muscle memory confusion, and then a few small setups that, honestly, I didn't see a lot of people using myself. Those are gone, but otherwise, this isn't as big a change as you might think, but it is definitely bigger than a lot of people might make it out to be. You do lose a bit on using Snake Around to get out of offensive sequences as well. A lot of times you could Snake Around when somebody would assault on your offense, because it does get head invuln pretty fast. And now, because you have to dash first, you have to go through dash startup and then hit the head invuln, and that's not happening. But we do have Creeping Edge, so Creeping Edge might just be able to do that better, if not a little riskier. So at least there's something functionally there for that. Number 5, new moves. Chaos got 2 new moves in this version of the game. You have 5 BC and 2 BC, so they're 2 new force functions. 5 plus BC is a Flame Carpet that sends the opponent full screen on hit, and is special cancelable into any of Azhi's moves. It can go into combos if you like. You can add it as an extra Azhi move. One thing to keep in mind, though, is because it is a force function, and it is a lot of hits, it can cost a lot of grid. If your opponent mashes shield during this, they get a lot of grid. One of my favorite quotes from the beta was, I press Flame Carpet and give my opponent Celestial. And that was said by a fellow Chaos player. And I think that's actually quite true in this version. It's not a great thing in block strings. It does bleed a lot of grid, so you have to be careful. Do not spam this. I tried using it as counterplay to opposing projectiles, and I had limited success. I do think there's a world where previously where you would 2-3-6A through projectiles, you now want to use force function against them. There are minimal frame trap applications of this move, so some of them are actually kind of neat options. You can do 2-1-4A hold after Flame Carpet, which then will combo into a full Azhi sequence if it makes contact. So if your opponent's pressing after the carpet, you can use that to create some maybe uncomfortable frame traps for them and stuff. It's a solid move, definitely. But I want to play around with it more when the game comes out, particularly to see how it works against projectiles, and if you can, like, on reaction, delete projectiles, and also if there's any further combo implication that we can use for this. Azhi also can do 2+ BC. This move is freaking awesome. This is actually, I think this makes up for a lot of the changes that came in for Chaos in this version. And I think actually some of the changes that were made are because this move exists. I think this move was what started the changes for Chaos. They wanted him to have this move. And then all the nerfs kind of had to come because of this move. This move is great. It's a new way to set up mix-up situations and can even extend combos a little bit. It combos off of 2-2A or B. And then you can do 6-6C. With this move, Azhi jumps behind the opponent, or if already behind the opponent, will jump to the opposite wall, and then dives in, homing in on their location. And this homing is good. He almost always makes contact with the opponent, whether they're in the ground, in the air, whatever. This move gains invincibility in Vorpal, so 623A's invincibility got traded to this move. And so it becomes very difficult to interrupt. Even though it's slow, it becomes difficult to interrupt if you've won the cycle. And off of 236A, if you cancel into this, Azhi will go behind them and set up a sandwich situation just like that, even from full screen. If the 2BC makes contact after that, you can create a frame trap or true block string situation and then stance 236A into the left-right from full screen. This was how I won a lot of my games on the beta. You can just create this situation basically whenever you want. There is counterplay to this situation, and I will expose that now. But this does seem to be a cornerstone of his offense. I think you're meant to be using 2BC a lot in this new version of Under Night. Because what it means is your opponent can no longer just turtle full screen and wait and block Azhi, because if they just continue to block and be passive, they get put into a sandwich situation immediately. So their solution becomes to start mashing on Azhi's 236A, or trying to react to the 2BC, and then maybe giving you a little bit more ground and a little bit more room to concentrate. You kind of force them to make a decision on defense, whether they want to mash on Azhi, or if they want to stay passive and let you concentrate more than you otherwise would have been able to. You don't have to commit any more of your Azhi moves. You can just 236A and wait, or you can 236A into 2BC and preserve the rest of your Azhi moves. So I think it's actually a really good kind of strategy to take into offense here. So yeah, so the solution is they can jab him out of it. I'm actually convinced this is why Azhi had to die to A normals. If you had to throw a B normal here to try to stop him from doing this, it would be absurd. This would just be too oppressive. But like I said, if Chaos is in Vorpal, Azhi is invulnerable during this. So they have to delay the jab until after that invul comes out. They can't just press 5A. He'll float right through them. They do have to jump backwards and press A. So you can jump backwards and press A to stop it once Azhi reaches the wall if you're full screen. If you're not close enough, you kind of have to hold it. So there's a lot of really good ways to set this up and create a whole game plan around this. Yeah, this creates an RPS situation basically where if we don't have, let's say we don't have Vorpal, if they want to press 5A in time, they leave themselves vulnerable to getting tail whip frame trap from Azhi off of the 236A. So then good opponents will then wait and jump back jab once he reaches the wall. This can be done on reaction. I tested it with some good players. They basically said they could always jump back jab and delete him. So I don't have full counterplay for that yet, if they're willing to just wait for him to flip and then jump back jab. But I do see a lot of potential in this in a couple ways. One, in Vorpal, you might be able to empty cancel this into another move. So there's a lot of cool things you might be able to do there. And then two, you can gain ground if they decide to jump back jab. Jump back jab is going to leave them airborne for quite a while. So you can take space, you can close the gap, you can set up your offense. You might even be able to air unblockable them after the JA hits Azhi if you're positioned right. So there's a lot of ways to keep your opponent's mental stack high and use this move. I highly, highly, highly recommend playing around with it once the game drops. And also seeing if it changed from anything I said here. I want to end this with just some quick thoughts about the general system changes and how that might affect Chaos. I don't think they affect him too much. But number one, damage is higher, and then there's the Celestial trait. This is going to be a gift and a curse for Chaos. Chaos kind of already did a lot of damage in clear, and I think this ends up being a net neutral for him overall. You know, he'll do plenty of damage now, but he'll also die more quickly. And I think that second part, Chaos dying more quickly, is actually going to be what's the issue, because you get fewer chances to set up situations. In the previous game, you could already roll somebody in like 2 interactions. Now, if they can do the same to you more consistently, yeah, you might be able to get a 2-touch every once in a while. But I mean, you were already 3-touching really consistently. All of his confirms were really good. So I think Chaos dying more quickly is actually going to make it harder for him to do as well as he could. I will also say with the 1 AD change, Azhi moves plus CS on Wake Up become not only harder to do, but less effective. So 236A CS is almost dead in the water. He dies to everything. So Azhi isn't going to interrupt your opponent's attack if they were using an A normal or a fireball. He's not going to counter hit the opponent. He's just going to die because you're doing it more slowly, and Azhi has less invulnerability. I will say 2-2A CS still seems to be intact in the game. And because 2AD gives you crouch jab, you can 2AD to get Azhi CS, or 2-2 AD will get Azhi CS, where you set him into the ground. And that still seems effective because that was always a pretty good tool. Chaos will want to win the cycle because, like I said, 2BC gaining that invuln makes it a lot harder for the opponent to interrupt Azhi without disrupting their own game plan. So you will still be playing for cycle much more. It is hard because your new tools are both force functions, and you can't really use VO to Vorpal strip an opponent who won cycle to get the hit. Now that I mention that, so speaking of VO startup is faster. This does make VO a bit of a better reversal for Chaos, and it does make some of his combos easier, but Chaos could Vorpal strip his opponent super easily in clear. Like, it was trivial. If you had 100 meter, you could Vorpal strip your opponent pretty much no matter what in clear. Now, you can't do that. So I think that's a nerf. That's a big nerf for Chaos because you have to win cycle honestly, and you can't just like lose cycle, hit your opponent, and strip it, and then continue your offense. So that's quite the nerf. Creeping Edge and Grid Thrust are going to be two things that Chaos has to use a lot on his defense. It is nice because Chaos builds a lot of meter and will want to win cycles, so he has a lot of defensive options that are still on the table, even though 1 AD is out of the door. You have Jump A is very strong for Chaos. You have 171 AD, that's still intact. Creeping Edge, Guard Thrust, and then with meter going up, CS Reversal will be on the table a lot more often as well. So there's a lot of ways for Chaos to defend himself, which he's going to need because, again, the damage is really, really high in this game, and Chaos historically doesn't have great defense. So I'd say his defense didn't get materially worse with the loss of 1 AD because everyone lost that, and he didn't lean on it super duper hard because he has like JA and he has things like VO being faster helps too. So, but I think JA is the one to really focus on here. So I don't think Chaos's defense got materially worse, but he's not in a good spot, right? Like, he doesn't have a reversal proper. He doesn't have good mash out button necessarily. He's 6 frames, so a little harder on his defense. Overall, I think Chaos was in a good place in the beta though. Not as good as he was in clear. He's probably down the tier list a little bit more, especially since some characters got a lot of love in this version. And again, this is all information from a beta, so I can't really speak to what will be in January, but this is my outlook. Once the game drops and I can verify this stuff, I'll go ahead and do a full Chaos guide, so look out for that. I know this one was a bit more rambly, but I did just want to get my thoughts out there on the beta, so thank you for listening. Let me know what you think in the comments about Chaos, or maybe your main in Uni 2. Did you play against anybody that made you fearful for a certain character or hopeful for a certain character? And are you excited for what they're going to bring to Uni 2? Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. You all be good to one another. Bye-bye.